Most of the time, it's very difficult to get watch collectors to agree on something. Date or no date on the dial. Is Submariner good or is it overrated? Drilled lug holes or no? You see what I mean? There's so many debates. However, sometimes you get a watch like this Oris Diver 65, a watch that is pretty much universally liked. In today's video, I'm going to do a full review of this timepiece and point out all the positives and the negatives of this watch. As always, let's begin this review by talking about the specs. The watch has a diameter of 40 millimeters. It's about 48 millimeters from one lug to another. It has a lug opening of 20 millimeters and it's only 13.3 millimeters thick. The case and the bracelet are both made out of stainless steel. The crystal, it's a domed sapphire. The water resistance is 100 meters. This watch is powered by caliber 733 automatic movement, which is essentially a Sellita SW200. And it has an RSMP of $2,050 US. Without a question, one of the best things about this watch is its price. Yes, the retail price is around $2,000, but you can negotiate a pretty good discount at the ADs. Or if you're looking for even more of a deal, you can get one on a gray market for around $1,500. And if you look at used examples, you can get them even cheaper than that. At around $1,500, this is an amazing watch. First of all, the finishers are executed really well. There is a satin finish on top of the lugs and a high polish one on the sides of the case. The watch has a very elegant case design. Good transitions between the brushed and polished finishes. The case is slightly curved for a better fit on the wrist, and overall the design language here is very vintage inspired. That's why the name Oris Divers 65. 65 meaning vintage inspired 1960s diver watches. Like for example the crown, it's at the 3 o'clock position. It is a signed screw down crown, but there are no crown guards. And the crown is also slightly oversized, just like on many vintage diver watches, which makes this crown pretty easy to operate. The sapphire crystal has a very pronounced dome, just like a lot of vintage watches from 1960s and 1970s. Now the difference between this crystal and the crystals on those watches is the fact that this crystal is a sapphire crystal with AR coating, where those crystals used to be acrylic crystals, which are of course a little bit warmer but not as durable. I personally really like the distortion angles that you get from a nicely domed sapphire crystal. It's not as good as acrylic, but it is more durable. Now this is a free diver watch, so what that means, it only has 100 meters of water resistance instead of the usual 200 like you would find on most modern diver watches. Do you really need 200 meters? No, but it does feel like you're losing something. By buying a watch with 100 meters of water resistance instead of 200, you kind of feel like you're losing 100 meters of water resistance. But chances are, of course, that probably will not affect the usage that you get out of the watch, because very few people will push their watches this far. So even though it's a slight negative, it's still not a real negative. It's just sort of a perceived negative, if you will. The upside of this lower water resistance is, of course, the thickness, or should I say the thinness on the watch. The case thinness is especially pronounced when you put this watch on your wrist. Here it is on my 7.5 inches wrist, and this is one of the most comfortable diver watches I've had on my wrist in a very long time. The proportions are great, it sits very low on the wrist, and it has a first hinged link, which makes this watch great choice for folks with smaller wrists. I also really enjoy how the bracelet tapers in from 20 millimeters by the lugs to about 15 millimeters by the clasp, which makes this watch even more comfortable. Even that big exposed crown doesn't dig into your wrist. By looking at this watch, you would assume that that crown would be in the way, but it's not. The comfort on the wrist for me is 10 out of 10. Now, since we're talking about the bracelet and it tapering, let's actually take a closer look at this bracelet. We can see that it has solid links and solid end links. It does have push style pins, which is a bit of a negative in a watch in this price category. You would want a screw in place pins. Another slight negative is this clasp. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. It's just very simple and a bit too rattly. To operate the clasp, you have 2 buttons for the release, and you also get 5 micro adjustments, which is a good thing. One element of the bracelet that will turn off a portion of my audience are these faux rivets. It looks very similar to the bracelet on Black Bay 58, and that bracelet is very divisive because of the faux rivets. I don't think the faux rivets on this bracelet are as pronounced as they are on Black Bay 58, nevertheless, they're still present. Moving on from the bracelet to the rest of the watch, this Oris has a 120 click unidirectional diver style bezel. The bezel action is excellent. It feels and sounds great. The grip on a bezel, however, is not the best. It's not the worst because the bezel is sort of easy to operate. However, I can see how this could be a bit of a difficult bezel to operate when your hands are wet. Also, the bezel insert on this watch should be dark black. That's how it comes from the factory. However, the owner of this watch has decided to ghost and age up the bezel. He prefers this look better. By the way, a huge thank you to my friend Chris for lending me this watch for a review. Now, usually I would not be into a faux patina on bezels. I would prefer the bezel to age up over time how it should. However, I think in this case it kind of fits within the design language of this watch because it does have that faux patina on the indexes already. So having some patina on the bezel sort of matches the character of the watch. Speaking of the indexes and the dial, all the indexes are applied and they're completed in this cream color to sort of mimic the color of aged lume. Similar treatment is done to the set of hands, but for some reason the set of hands have a slightly different shade of cream. I guess at this price point you can expect some imperfections. Now this difference, it's not too stark, it's not like the first thing that you notice. However, if you do notice it, it's hard not to notice it. So every time you look at your watch, you sort of see this discoloration. It's very slight, but it's still there. There's also a bit of difference in the lume. Here's a lume shot for your reference. As you can see, the lume on the set of hands is much stronger than the lume on the indexes. On the video, the difference between the lume on the hands and the lume on the indexes is not as pronounced as it is in real life. In real life, the difference is a lot more noticeable. The lume on the indexes could definitely use a few more coats. Moving on to the rest of the dial, I like the date window at the 6 o'clock position. It's integrated really well. It fits the design, doesn't throw the symmetry off in any way. I also like that the background on the date wheel is perfectly matched to the background on the dial. I mean, it's not perfectly matched because it's done in a black color, where this dial is done in a gorgeous dark blue. Really love this shade of blue. In certain lighting conditions, it almost appears black. In a direct sunlight, it appears much lighter. This dial color is really gorgeous and well done. Not a lot of writing on this dial. Oris logo by the 12 o'clock position and water resistance rating closer to the 6 o'clock position, as well as Swiss made all the way at the bottom there. That's pretty much it. Overall, this is a very solid watch. Is it a perfect watch? No, but at this price point, it's an excellent offering from Oris, which has a lot of charm in itself. It has a lot of appeal, especially within watch collecting community. Could there be some improvements to this watch? Yes, and I'm guessing that Oris is taking notes and next version of this watch is going to be even better. However, the current version is still really good. A lot of the negatives that I mentioned are not really that big of a deal, and around $1,500 to $1,800 you can definitely overlook them. But what do you guys think? Leave a comment in the comment section below. Let me know. I always enjoy reading and interacting with your comments. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We release new videos every week. Thanks for watching this one, and we'll see you next time. Bye.